Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. We offer our most respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditional soul. No, I'm fine. Okay. So today is a very special day on the Vaishnava calendar, or in the Vaishnava calendar. It is Ram Vijay, Vijay Dasami, and it is also the glorious appearance of Shripad Madhvacharya. So we'll be giving class about both of these different subject matters today. Okay? Everybody sit down. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Janabalabha Girivardhakti Gopi Janabalabha Girivardhakti Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachare Munatera Banachare Jairadu Madhava Kunya Bihari Joyuradu madhuba kunyabihare. Gopijana Ballabha Giri Bharadhare. Gopijana Ballabha Giri Bharadhare. Giri Bharadhare Sunanandana Rajajana Ranshana. Jasunanana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tera Panachare. Yamuna Tera Panachante. Jayuranu Madhava Kunyabihati. Jayuranu Madhuva Kunyabihare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravaticharya also Tada Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuranam Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Bunmai Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya. Putale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samariti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Chani Nivashesha Shinivadi Pasyatsa Dejatarni Somaganat Tiviranda Shah. Kadanjana Shilakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So as I mentioned, today is the glorious appearance day of Sripad Madhvacharya and also the celebration of the victory of Lord Ram, Vijay Dasami. So we're going to speak about Sripad Madhvacharya first. And Madhvacharya, of course, we are Madhva Gaudiya, we are in the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, which means coming from Sripad Madhvacharya, ultimately coming from Lord Brahma and going through Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the present day representatives of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So here's the history of Madhvacharya, some stories about his glorious appearance. In addition, he is also Vayu Putra. Vayu Putra means he's the son of the wind god Vayu. And actually there's 3 famous Vayu Putras. The first one is Hanuman. Second one is Bhimsen. And the third one is Sripad Madhvacharya. So, Madhvacharya, there's some differences in calculating when he appeared, when he disappeared. So there's 2 ages that I found. One is 1199 to 1278 AD, or 1238 to 1317 AD. So some of these histories, there's some uncertainty. So it was predicted that he was going to appear. Actually, in Udupi, which is where he appeared, there was one man who wasn't quite educated. He started screaming very, very loudly before Madhvacharya appeared. And he said that the wind god's son will appear here soon in Udupi. So his father and mother prepared for the pregnancy by surviving on drinking milk for 12 years. It's like a payovrata, type of payovrata. So, and eventually Sripad Madhvacharya was born, and there's many stories of his voracious appetite, because Bhimsen, his brother, was also known as Vrikodara, means someone who has a wolf belly. In other words, sometimes when I was young, if I ate too fast, my mother would say, "You're eating like a wolf." So that means someone who has insatiable appetite. So he had to drink his mother's milk every half hour. His poor mother. And, when it was time for his anaprashna, which means the first grains that someone gets, his mother was gone, and he got really hungry, and it was time, the exact, astrological time for him to take grains for the first time. So his sister was there, and she brought a bag that was about 40 kilos of horse grains. And he ate the whole thing. Yeah. And there's a story of one time he was coming back as a baby, being brought back from the temple, and there was a Rakshasa who possessed a man right near there. And this Rakshasa spoke through the man's mouth and said, "The only thing that will cure me is if this baby touches his feet to my head." And so he did, and the person was cured. He had many childhood pastimes, such as grabbing bulls' tails and riding a bull all day long and being pulled by the bull. Famous story is, once upon a time, his father had a debt, and he didn't have any money to pay that debt. So in India, debts were considered very serious. In fact, debts were even inherited. Like if your father passed away and he had a big debt, you had to pay that debt. Not only do you inherit the money, but you would inherit his debt. So this man came to his houses, and actually this time he is known as Vasudev. That was his original name. So he came to his house, and he sat outside the house. He said, "I'm not going to eat, and I'm not going to accept any hospitality." And this is an insult. Nowadays in America, if someone came and said, "I'm not going to eat and accept any hospitality until you pay me," you'd say, "Okay, have a good day, buddy." But, that was the culture. So he sat outside the house, and Vasudev asked him, "What's your problem?" And the man said, "Your father owes all this money." So Vasudev, that was Madhvacharya later on, he picked up some tamarind seeds in his hand. He said, "Here is the payment for the debt." The man was enthralled by Vasudev's beauty, and he looked down at these tamarind seeds, and they were no longer tamarind seeds. They became gold coins, or pieces of gold. And in this way, he paid his father's debt. He was a Shrutidara. Shrutidara means that he heard something one time, and he remembered. He never forgot. So he learned everything at his school perfectly. And even at the age of 5 or 6, he was attending a recitation of the Puranas, and the reciter made a mistake in Sanskrit, and he corrected the reciter. And so everybody was astounded at his erudition. So at 5 years old, he actually took this Upanayanam, which means the Brahman thread, Gayatri mantra like that. And around that same time, there was a snake demon who came to attack him and his family. He was three-headed. His name was Maniman. And this demon actually previously been killed by Bhimsen, but somehow or other he reincarnated again. And the snake demon was killed by Madhvacharya's toe. He was able to fly through the air. It's described when his mother called him, Vasudev, Vasudev. He would fly even several miles or kilometers through the air and land at his mother's feet. His teacher accused him of not studying because he just didn't seem to pay attention. But then he was able to recite the verses perfectly when the teacher asked him, because he claimed, he said, I know the lesson. And then later on, the same teacher had a son, and this son had a headache, and this headache was cured by Vasudeva blowing in his ear, like that. So finally, he accepted a spiritual master, a guru, and his guru's name was Achyuta Preksha. Now, it's a very interesting story about this because Achyuta Preksha had been cultivating Madhvacharya from the time he was a little baby. And the way he was cultivating Sripad Madhvacharya, or Vasudeva, was that he would give him sweets each time he came to the temple. Anyway. So Madhvacharya used to call him the sweet guru. He didn't preach to him. He just said, oh, here's a sweet, here's a sweet. So after a while, he became so attached to his guru. As described that this Achyuta Preksha was previously a bee that had been fed by Draupadi in his previous incarnation. He became so attached that he wanted to take sannyas like at 6 or 7 years of age. And his parents were very upset because they had no son. Oh, nice dhoti. They had no son. And, in India, the son is the person who's going to take care of you when you get older. The daughter you give away to another family, and the son is supposed to take. So they were very upset. He was their only son. You have to get married. We have all sorts of plans for you. This is our old age insurance. And he said, all right, let's make a deal. And they were very old at that particular point. I believe they were in their mid-40s. And so he said, if you can have another son, can I take sannyas? And they said, sure. Everything, it's not going to happen. So they had another son a little while after that. And at 9 years of age, he took sannyas, very early sannyas. So then he began to reside with his spiritual master, Achyuta Preksha, and he really wanted to go to see the Ganges. So his spiritual master was so attached to him, he said, no, you cannot go to see the Ganges. You just stay here and serve your guru. So he brought the Ganges to Udupi, spiritually. He brought the Ganges. So it's described that every 12 years, the Ganges now comes to Udupi. He defeated, even when he was very young, like 12 years old, he was defeating all these different pandits. There was a pandit named Vasudev who basically tried to defeat him, and he established the proper meaning of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So his guru was so pleased with him that he gave him the name Ananda Tirtha. Eventually the guru actually accepted him, that is Madhvacharya, or Vasudeva, or Nanda Tirtha, as his guru. They switched roles. There's a whole story about that. And he began to defeat all these different philosophers because in India is very cultured at that particular time. The type of fighting that occurred, at least on the religious basis, was not a physical fight. course, there were physical fights based on conquering different kingdoms and things like that. But religion in India traditionally, that's apart from the Muslims, was never spread by physical means. It was always spread by argumentation, discussion, vada. So he had these discussions with Jains, and then, actually it's even described that later on Lord Nityananda had discussion with Jains and they committed suicide. But anyway, that's a different story. He discussed with Jains, and then the head of all the Buddhists named Bodhisagara. And Bodhisagara came to him one day, and along with his disciples, and challenged him to a debate. And Madhvacharya, Vasudeva, Nandatirtha, he said, we'll have the debate tomorrow. But the Bodhisagara became so frightened that he ran away with all of his disciples before they could speak. Eventually, he was given the name Madhvacharya. Madhu basically means honey or sweetness or ananda. And he continued to eat quite a bit. He was actually known, as I said, as a voracious eater. One day, he was given a big meal. And after the meal, for dessert, he was offered 200 plantains. And he ate them all with no problem at all. And this is definitely, he's a transcendental personality. Transcendental personality. Then he traveled to the south, and he had this discussion with this follower of Shankaracharya named Vijayasankara. And Vijayasankara thought, I'll defeat him by stealing all of his books. So he arranged to steal all the books. Later on, of course, he was imprisoned by this king Jayasingha, who discovered that he was the one who stole the books. But anyway, Madhvacharya was still able to defeat him. And other mystical things, he went through a village that had no water. There was a lady there. And so he put his danda in the ground, and water came from the ground, a well came. Then he traveled to the north to see Srila Vyasadeva in Uttara Madurai. That means Badarayana. So he went, the Uttara means transcendental level. You can't just walk up there. In fact, one of his disciples, Satyatirtha, tried to follow him, but he waved his hand, and Satyatirtha flew through the air and landed down at the base camp. So, under the instruction of Srila Vyasadeva, he was able to show his Gita Bhashya to Srila Vyasadeva, and then under the instruction of Vyasadeva, he composed his commentary on the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra, in which he analyzed the Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. There's the three aspects of devotional service or spirituality. Sambandha, understanding the relationship between the different tattvas. Abhideya, the process of spiritual advancement. And Prayojana, the goal of spiritual advancement. So there's a story in the Bhavishya Purana, and I'm not so sure about the authenticity of the Bhavishya Purana, but it tells the story of Madhvacharya meeting with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, in which he was told not to describe the philosophy of Achintya Veda Tattva, but to leave that up to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would later appear. Then he went back to Udupi, and in 1285, he saved a ship that was caught in a storm by motioning to it. And the captain was so pleased with him, the captain asked, "What can I do for you?" And Madhvacharya said, "Just give me some Gopi Chandan," because they were using Gopi Chandan as ballast. That means in the keel of the boat, sort of to balance the boat. And so he took this piece of Gopi Chandan and put it in the lake later on, and it dissolved, and inside there was a deity of Bala Krishna. That's Udupi Krishna. And he worshiped those deities, and those deities that deity is still there. In addition, he inherited the deities of Sita and Ram that were worshipped by Hanuman, and actually had been worshipped throughout the whole Vivaswan's dynasty, Vivaswan, Manu, Ikshvaku, etc., like that, and all the way down to Sripad Madhvacharya. And these deities are there in Udupi today. You can go see these deities that were worshipped at the time of before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's a story about the deities we don't have time to tell, that Prabhupada told. He was challenged by one wrestler, and he told the wrestler, if you could move one toe of mine, then you win. So the wrestler couldn't do anything like that. Later on, he and his party were attacked by thieves, and he gave the thieves a bag of stones and told them it was gold. And they fought with each other over that, and actually, some of them killed each other. In a second visit to Srila Vyasadeva, he was told by Srila Vyasadeva to explain the Mahabharata. And he wrote this commentary on the Mahabharata, which I've read, called the Tat Paracha Nirnaya, which means the truth of the Mahabharata. And this Tat Paracha Nirnaya is actually written from, in many cases, from the first-person perspective. In other words, it's like as if he were there. And also there in the Tat Paracha Nirnaya, he says that the present edition of the Mahabharata that we have has actually been changed dramatically. So the scholars state that there's something like 64 different editions of the Mahabharata, and they differ dramatically according to what part of India they come from. So they've tried to come to the understanding of what's called the critical edition of the Mahabharata, but they really haven't come to that conclusion. So therefore, as far as the stories that are there in the Mahabharata, we accept the Bhagavatam's version when there's some difference between the stories of the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam. We accept the Bhagavatam's version as authentic. So he took his disciples to Hastinapur and later toured Kurukshetra. And there in Kurukshetra, he was able to tell his disciples where each different occasion or fight took place. And it's described by some of the biographers that he showed them where Bhima's club was. And then he reburied it. Another time, he sung to a seed which grew into trees and bore fruits. And finally, he left this world while speaking a commentary on the Upanishads. The demigod showered flowers and covered him. And when the disciples uncovered him, he was no longer there. So he disappeared from this world in that particular way. So Sripad Madhvacharya Ki Jai. So we are indebted to Sripad Madhvacharya, and we are followers of Sripad Madhvacharya. So then we got about 15 minutes to talk about Ram Vijay, the victory ceremony of Lord Ram. And so I'm going to be reading from my notes on the Ramayana. And we're starting with Lakshman's fight with Indrajit. So this is the final day of the battle. So previously, Indrajit took advantage of a diversion. That means he diverted the other party that would engage in discussing something, that to do a sacrifice for his family deity, which is called Nikumbila. And it was given a benediction, this is from the Valmiki Ramayana, from Lord Brahma, that if he does this sacrifice, he will get an invincible chariot, and he will always defeat his enemy. No one can defeat him. And if he doesn't finish the sacrifice, that's when he's going to die. So just like yesterday, we were hearing about how the death of demons are actually predicted by their benedictions, isn't it? You can actually predict, like there's this Sunda Nuprasunda, who were given this great benediction. They couldn't be defeated, except the only way they could be defeated is if they killed each other. And then it was arranged that they fought each other over this girl, Tilotama, when they were drunk, and they killed each other. So it's interesting. And also, it's interesting to note that because they're trying to fight in such a way as to circumvent being killed in that way, their fighting actually ends up causing them to die. In other words, even this story. Anyway, this particular story, let's talk about this particular story. Indrajit was predicted he would die if his sacrifice to Nikumbila was not completed. So by embarking on that sacrifice, he actually precipitated his own death, because that's how it was predicted he would die. So anyway, Vibhishan tells the good guys, that means Lord Ramchandra and Lakshman, that Indrajit is performing this particular sacrifice. And so it tells them where it is. Go there and stop this sacrifice. So Lakshman should go there accompanied by Hanuman and his army. So Hanuman destroys many of the Rakshasas that are guarding, and Hanuman goes into the sacrifice. And there's some different stories here, different versions of this, because Vibhishan points out where this sacrifice is going on. It's described that Hanuman actually passes urine on the sacrifice, and the sacrifice is interfered with, and Indrajit gets very angry with Vibhishan, and Lakshman starts fighting with Indrajit seated on Hanuman's shoulders. They both fire arrows at each other. Indrajit fires 100 arrows at Vibhishan to try to kill him, because Vibhishan is his uncle. And the monkeys destroy Indrajit's chariot. The driver is killed. The horses are killed. Indrajit goes back to the city for a new chariot and driver. He returns, and Vibhishan says to Lakshman, you should kill Indrajit, who is Ravana's right-hand man, and then only Ravana will be left. So the driver of the second chariot of Indrajit is killed. Vibhishan kills the horses. Indrajit fires Yama's arrow at Vibhishan, and Lakshman fires and protects Vibhishan. Lakshman then fires Indra's weapon, saying, if Ram is the soul of righteousness, slay this demon. And then Indrajit's head is cut off. Rakshasas flee, and Lakshman goes to Ram, but he's so humble, he doesn't even tell him about his victory. This is a sign of greatness. He doesn't brag, I killed him. But he has culture like this. Vibhishan, of course, relates the news and praises Lakshman, and Ram puts Lakshman on his lap and praises him. And Lakshman is suffering from so many wounds, but Ram calls this doctor Shushena. Now, in one version of the Ramayana, Shushena is actually part of Ravana's entourage, but actually he's one of the monkeys, according to the Valmiki Ramayana. So Ram calls Shushena to restore him, and Vibhishan and all the monkeys who are injured and bears who are injured become restored by this spiritual powder. Lakshman becomes healed, and everyone is healed. Ravana is enraged now that his son has been killed. Fire starts to come from him. Everyone is afraid. Even the other Rakshasas are afraid of Ravana at this particular point. He resolves, I'm going to kill Sita then. he approaches her, but the other Rakshasas and his wife talks him out of it, Mandodari. He says, you can still win, and you can enjoy her when you defeat Raghava. So he orders all the remaining Rakshasas to kill Ram. Ram uses the Gandharva weapon to remain invisible, and he fights so quickly that no one sees him, and he only the arrows are seen by them. And sometimes, because it's the Gandharva weapon, they see thousands of Rams and they start fighting each other. In other words, they see each other as Ram, and they start and all become killed. And then the Rakshasas and Rakshasinis lament over Ravana's stupidity and Surpanaka's ugliness. Ravana, he's not deterred. He keeps bragging and asks for this Mahapaksha, Mahodara, and Virupaksha. And he gets all the remaining Rakshasas. He goes on in a chariot with 8 horses. Now there's very inauspicious signs for Ravana at this particular point. And so these other Rakshasas are killed. Sugriva slays Virupaksha. Sugriva also kills Mahodara. And all the Rakshasas flee in terror. And Angada slays Mahaparshva. And Jambavan kills all the horses. Angada strikes Mahaparshva in the heart and kills him. And Ravana starts attacking all with Lord Brahma's missile. Ram twangs his bow, and everyone falls to the ground from the sound of the twanging. And Lakshman fires arrows at Ravan, but Ravan cuts arrows down and ignores Lakshman, and he goes to Ram. Ravan uses the Asura missile. Ram counters with a fire god missile. Lakshman cuts the flag, head of driver, severs the bow of Ravana. Vibhishan kills the horses. Ravan hurls his javelin at Vibhishan. Lakshman cuts it down. Ravan hurls a second javelin at Vibhishan, but Lakshman interferes and tries to cut it down, but Lakshman gets hit by it. And there's some description here that Hanuman has to go back a second time to cure Lakshman, to get them Ritu Sanjeevani. So he carries the mountain back and forth again. And Lakshman gets better. So, we don't have much time. Ravan gets another chariot, and at this particular time, Matali, who is Indra's chariot driver, comes with Indra's chariot and gives Ram the bow of Indra and the armor of Indra. So Ravana fires snake arrows, and Ram fires the Garuda arrows. And the Garuda arrows eat the snake arrows. Ravan cuts Ram's flag, and the Asuras think, wow, we're victorious. All glories to Dasagriva. That's Ravan. Ravan throws his spear. Ram couldn't stop with the arrows. Ram stops it with his javelin and breaks it into 6 pieces. And Ravana gets bewildered, and the chariot driver takes Ravana away. Ravana chastises his driver. Driver explains, I'm loyal to you, I'm trying to help you. And so Ram is tired, but Agastya Muni appears and teaches him the mantra, Aditya Hridaya. Ram does his achman and twangs his bow, takes Indra's bow. I'm just going to go quickly because we have very little time. So Matali is even shot, and Ram angrily cuts off 100 heads of Ravana, but they keep coming back up. Ram gets confused, and Matali says, use Brahma's missile. Ram fires it and hits Ravan's heart. And Ravan dies. Haribol. Rakshasas run, apes run away, and flowers fall from the sky. Drums are played in the sky. Vibhishan cries over Ravan's death. And Lord Ram says, You have to perform the last rites, that's referring to Vibhishan. And Rakshasis come out from the city and cry at seeing Ravan, and Mandodari, the chaste wife of Ravan, laments and even chastises her husband for being lusty. She recognizes that Lord Rama is Vishnu and tells Vibhishan also to do the last rites. Vibhishan refuses because of Ravan's sinfulness. And Ram convinces him, saying, I am interested in Ravan's welfare. And finally, Vibhishan agrees. Ram sends Lakshman to crown Vibhishan because Ram can't enter the kingdom of Ravan at that particular point, Lanka, because he's taken a vow to remain in the forest for all the years. Then he sends Hanuman for Sita. I want to end with this. Hanuman assures Sita, and she's overjoyed. Hanuman offers to kill all the Rakshasinis who are torturing Sita. She says, no, they were simply following orders. Sounds like World War II. It is my karma. Such humility and such compassion and such tolerance. Very interesting. She says to Hanuman, you should forgive. No one is beyond doing something evil. Everyone makes mistakes. So she says, I want to see Ram. Hanuman returns to Ram to convey Sita's message, and Ram appears to be disturbed, and he's crying. Ram says, get Sita, but first she must bathe and put on her jewels. She wants to see him immediately, but decides to follow his orders. So there's a palanquin arranged, and Rakshasas are carrying her, and Ram appears very preoccupied, like something's on his mind. He's mixed gladness and sorrow, misery and anger. Everyone wants to see her, but they couldn't as she was in a palanquin. Vibhishan was chastising the people who wanted to see her. And Ram chastises Vibhishan and tells them to treat people kindly, let people see her. Sita covered herself by a cloth and comes out of the palanquin. And Ram says to her, Madam, I did my duty. We did not fight war to get you, but to save my honor. Oh my God. Sita's crying. Your sight is disagreeable. Therefore, you can go wherever you like. I have no use for you. You can marry someone else, perhaps Lakshman, Sugriva, Vibhishan. Sita is crying. How can you say this? You are acting like a common man. Sita tells Lakshman to build a funeral pyre. Ram agrees. Sita circumambulates Ram and says, may fire attest to my chastity. She walks into the fire. Everyone's scared. All the demigods appear, Shiva, Brahma, etc., and they get upset with Lord Ram. They tell Ram who he actually is. And Lord Ram feigns ignorance. And Sita comes out from the fire. The fire god attests to her purity. And the fire god says, I will tolerate no word criticizing Sita. You should accept her back. Sita comes back and says, let's go back to Ayodhya and have a family and do a horse sacrifice. Then King Dasarath appears on a heavenly chariot. And he says, first thing he says is, I don't like Kaikeyi. And Ram says, forgive Kaikeyi and Bharat. And Dasarath agrees. And Dasarath instructs Lakshman and instructs Sita to not be upset. And Indra offers a boon to Ram. And Ram asks the monkeys and bears to be brought back to life. So all the good guys are brought back to life. They should have good food and health. And they all come back to life as if they were waking from a deep sleep. And then the gods say, go to Ayodhya. Ram rests for the night, and he takes the Pushpaka Vimana and goes back to Ayodhya. And that's the story of Ram Vijay in a nutshell. A lot of information there. Okay, all glories to
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalayataksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Nandar Agom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Vipan Vikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Him. Namahom Vishnupataya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Saminiti Namane Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Vaja, Nagini Visesha, Shunyavati, Matsya Jagade, Satarane. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Siva Sadi Gauramakti Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radha Siva Sati Korat Brenda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ramanityananda Dvaita Radha Siva Sati Korat Brenda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Rukinana, Rada, Rukinana, Rate. Rada, Rukinana, Rada, Rukinana, Rate. Hey, Rade, Rade, Rade. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa
Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam Shreya kairavya chandrika vitarnam vidyavadu jivanam anandam buddhi vardhanam pratibanam brunamrita swadanam sarvatmasnapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna sankirtanam Nam namakari bahudani jasarva shaktis tatrapitani amita smaranena kala etadrishita vakriba bhagavan mamapi dordaiva midrishami hajjani nanuraga trinadapi sunichena charorapi suhishuna Amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmani ishvare bhavatad bhaktir hoitaki tvai ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam buddha kribayatava bada kankaja Sita Duli Sajashimva Chintaya Nayanam Gadarshu Daraya Varanam Gad Gaduridaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahaneva Vishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyavapadamritam Panastumam Adarshana marmahata karotuva yatatatava vidadatu lampato mat prananatas sa eva napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Shastastika Ki Jai. And a reminder that tomorrow we'll be having Harinam Sankirtan, 11:30 in front of Weaver Street Market here in Hillsborough. Please join the Sankirtan party tomorrow. Hare Krishna. And today is a very special day, and the program begins at 11 o'clock. Hare Krishna.